Thanks for joining us at Live in 5. Hello, everybody's with us in the studio, and those who are not, those of you who are flying through the air with us, and those of you who are still stuck on the ground. This is a picture I took out the window. I don't know what it is. It's probably this like the silliest time to be taking, photographs out window, flying in a plane and looking out the window. Makes no sense, but at the same time, I can't help myself. I'm like a kid when I fly and I sit in the window seat of a plane. I'm just glued to the window the entire time. Doesn't matter, night or day, I'm looking out the window. I just think it's the coolest thing to fly over the ground and look down at stuff. Isn't that neat? So this is a picture of the approach of Las Vegas. And, my most recent plane trip I took. And, there's some nice clouds and it's pretty flat, a little desert, and there's some roads. But it's just one of those things. It's not a bad photo, not that exciting, but it makes me feel like I'm up there. And so I decided that's the theme of today. Thanks for joining us for another week of Live at 5. Up, up, up and away is the subtitle of today's episode. And to some degree, it's besides just me sitting in the clouds. My teacher's always telling me, "Is that your head in the clouds again? You got to get your head out of the clouds." But there could be a thematic connection here. We are thinking about up. So last week we spoke a little bit about on some of the episodes of last week's show. We spoke about the particular calendar period we're in. We're getting out of Egypt. We're on our way to Mount Sinai. This is a good shot, right? Looking, it didn't quite look like this way, but looking down, imagine that's the Jewish people down there on their way to Mount Sinai. And today, and we count all those days in the middle, and today is day 15. Today also happens to be, as well, by the way, happens to be Rosh Chodesh, which means the beginning of the new month. Today and tomorrow, both days are actually celebrated as a new month's beginning. It's the Chodesh of Iyar. Now, Iyar, it sounds like Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh. Actually, Eeyore. I just realized that Iyar, but Iyar is the ancient name of this particular Jewish month, and it's an interesting month. From a mystical standpoint, the month of Iyar, and actually all the months, have a connection with one particular letter, and the letter that is associated, the Hebrew letter is associated with the Jewish month of Iyar, is a letter Vav. I point like this because the Vav is like a sort of like a one, is like a little stick. It's like a Vav, and the Vav is a letter which, when you make it a prefix in front of a word, it means and, like this and that. In Hebrew, there's no word for and. There's just a prefix which connects the word to the previous word. The prefix is the letter Vav. In fact, the name of the letter Vav, the word Vav in Hebrew actually means a hook, like a connector. A hook. Like you hook two things together, and if you have like one of those little old-fashioned little hooks that just kind of goes like this, you have a little eye hole over here, and the hook goes in like that. In Hebrew, they call it a vav ruach, a wind hook. Okay, that's a vav ruach. So the word letter vav is a hook, and it's the connective letter, because this and that. This is neither here nor there, but I always thought it was kind of funny that I saw in a hotel room once, the King James Bible was stuck there in the drawer by the bed. And in that version, they translate they had translated, it was just an English copy of, they call the Old Testament, we call it the Torah. And of course, I'm more familiar with the Hebrew. I don't not so good with their English, but I did notice, interestingly, that they didn't know what to do with the words that they have to add to make the English flow that are not really literal translations. So they stuck them in italics. They just put them in italics. So you've got a word in italics. In normally when I see a word in that's italicized, I think it's emphasized. Here, the opposite is true. The words in italics are the words that really don't appear in the Hebrew. They appear only, they're linking words in the English, and they italicize them. So it was almost like all the words that didn't really appear in the original, those were the ones they were emphasizing. And every time you saw the word and the, they were in italics. You go figure, okay? Because in Hebrew, the word and the is not a word. It's just a prefix. So thanks of you for those who are just joining us. We were just talking about so Kabbalistically again, the month today's Rosh Chodesh ER, and the month of ER is associated with the letter Vav, which is one of those prefixes, which means and. It's the linking letter. This and that. This prefix links the two words. Now, why do I mention that? I think it's a very important sort of corollary to everything we've been saying about this part of the calendar in the last couple of days, which is that really we're in this bridge period. It's a link between Passover holiday and Shavuos holiday, because those two things are almost like bookends. In fact, there's an interesting idea about it from Nachmanides, who talks about the connection between these two holidays and all these middle days, the 49 days in between, that to some degree, he says they're like Chol HaMoed. What is Chol HaMoed? Chol HaMoed are the Passover or Sukkot intermediary days, right? So what does that mean? So I'll tell you, each of those holidays is a week-long holiday. Some of those days, like the beginning and maybe the end, are festive, really festive, Yom Tov days, and everything in between is sort of quasi-festive, and it has a partially holy status. So we call that Chol HaMoed, which means like the interconnection of festive and normal together. Chol HaMoed. It's the in the middle days, middle grounds. Okay. Now, so these are said Nachmanides in a very fascinating way. He said, in fact, that in all of the days between Passover and Shavuos are like that. Are like Chol HaMoed. Can you imagine? It's a long Chol HaMoed, 7 weeks, right? But that's what he said, because these two holidays go together. Now, in our family, we have a corollary to this, okay? We say that, because when you have a birthday, you have a Hebrew birthday and an English birthday. It's only every 19 years they correspond. Usually they're different days, your Hebrew birthday is on one day and your English birthday is recognized on another day. So we say, why just have one or two birthdays? You could have lots of birthdays. All of those intermediary days between your Hebrew and your English are like Chol HaMoed of your birthday, and you could celebrate the whole time. This is a great Jewish invention, the Chol HaMoed of your birthday. And I'm thinking about this because my birthday is in ER, so I have a birthday coming up. And then, there'll be the English after ones. And nowadays, it's even better. You also have a Facebook birthday, because Facebook tells everybody what day your birthday is. And so you can extend it even longer, and you could just have more and more and more birthday. But we've mentioned before, the only birthday in the Torah, the only birthday party, I should say, is Pharaoh's. So we don't really make big birthday parties, because after all, who's emulating Pharaoh so much? So we don't make birthday parties, but a birthday you could celebrate. Now, the idea of a Chol HaMoed is a connection that all of these are like one big holiday, Passover on the one hand and Shavuos holiday that we're coming up to. And those intermediary days are contain the month of ER, the letter of which is Vav, which is the link, which connects the two. Got it? Is everybody with me? So that's the first point. It's really interesting. I have a very nice Catholic neighbor, lovely family, and he told me the other day that he's learning so much about his own religion from our holidays that we're celebrating next door. So he asked me what we're doing, and we're doing this, we're doing that, and there's always a holiday, and for him that is based on something that we do, right? So they have something called Pentecost. I was telling him he got his own holiday called Pentecost. Pentecost is Greek for the 50th. Pente means 50 in Greek, right? So so we have a holiday called Shavuos, which the Torah says count 49 days, and the 50th day, that's your holiday. So they have the 50th day holiday somewhere around that time, which is actually they call Pentecost. In fact, until very recently, Easter also was a holiday, I believe. It became a Sunday exclusive holiday, but it used to be a holiday that was calculated based on Passover, right? It actually was, their holiday was actually determined what day of the year it was going to be based on Passover. They eventually decided they didn't like that. Their holiday should be based on our calendar, so they changed it and they made it, made Easter Sunday. But they have they have a holiday for every holiday that we have. Now, these holidays, of course, come from the Torah, from the life of the Jewish people, and Passover is, as we know, the day when the Jewish people left Egypt, and Shavuos is the day when the Jewish people stood at Mount Sinai and got the Torah. And those two things cannot be separated. You cannot distinguish, you cannot separate them. They need to be considered together, because and this is one of my really favorite sort of ideas, philosophical Jewish ideas that I want to share with you, which is the connection. Okay. Now, we talked about this count. We count these 49 days, and we refer to it as Sfiras HaOmer, the counting of the Omer. What is the Omer exactly? We're counting it. It sounds like we're counting something called an Omer. What is an Omer? So you might be surprised when I tell you that the word Omer actually means basically a bushel, like a bushel of barley. We're counting this thing, this amount of barley. Kind of funny. What is that related to? What are we counting? So we are counting days from the Jewish people actually had a national bushel of barley offering, an Omer of barley, and that was once a year, brought on the day after the Seder. Okay, the Seder, the Seder is at night, the beginning of Passover. The next day, during the day, the Jewish people would, in the temple in Jerusalem, they would bring an actual barley offering. And it sounds like a good cholent ingredient. And it was actually brought right there and in the temple. Now, the Torah says, when you bring that barley offering, you're going to count 49 days, and then you're actually going to bring a new offering. It actually says that, a mincha chadasha, not just any type of offering. This one is wheat, a wheat offering. And it's a very interesting dynamic, because the as much as I enjoy barley in my cholent, the Torah considers barley to be animal food, and nice refined flour to be people food. And so it is an interesting kind of a journey here, up and away, from the animal barley offering to the people, the human wheat offering. Bookends of the 49-day count. Now, what is all that about? So the beautiful explanation that I want to share with you, I heard in the name of Rabbi Elia Lapiansky. I read it beautiful in one of the Torah commentary books that he wrote, and it's a very idea in which he contrasts two types of freedom. He says, there's freedom, and then there's freedom. There are two types of freedom. Not all freedom is created equal. There's the freedom of an animal, and then there's the freedom of a person. Now, how do we understand those two things? So the freedoms that we enjoy, the freedom of getting out of Egypt, you could say in a sense that it's like, Pharaoh, he was enslaving us, persecuting us, torturing us, and preventing us from doing what we want. You're enslaved. You can't do what you want. The slave master tells you what you can and what you can't do. You're enslaved. It's not, you don't get to do what you want. To do what we want, the freedom to do what I want, that's what Pharaoh was holding us back from, and that's what we got when we got out of Egypt. The freedom from Egypt. Now Pharaoh is no longer keeping us doing our thing. We now have the freedom to do what we want. That's one type of freedom. And another type of freedom, however, is there's something more sophisticated, because that, explained Rav Lapian, frankly, that's just the freedom of an animal. Let's take a cow, for example, and Gary Larson cartoons, Far Side cartoons aside, cows are basically, about the least, least clever animal out there, right? A cow just stands out there in the field and just eats. It just eats whatever, you can't train a cow. Did you ever go to the circus and see the trained cow show? No, it's just never one of those. You can't say to the cow, oh yeah, eat over here, don't eat that. There's no telling a cow what to eat and what not to eat. The cow eats whatever it wants. The opportunity to do whatever I want, whatever, oh, you put some food in front of me, I'll eat it. The chocolate cake is on your plate. Who cares? I'll eat it. That idea to just do whatever I want without restriction, that's freedom, but that's the freedom of a cow. That's the freedom of a cow. That's animal freedom. The freedom to just do whatever my, whatever pops into my head or whatever appetite I have at the moment. And nobody's telling me not to. That's freedom. You're right. Nobody's constraining me, but that's the freedom of a cow. Said Rav Leban, the freedom of a human being is not the freedom to do whatever I want. It's the freedom not to do what I want. What does that mean? It means that I'm empowered to live a life of choice, of philosophy, of principle and value. That if this is something that I want to eat, but my values are that that's not something that's correct for me to eat, I will stop myself from doing so. I will control myself. That, says Rav Leban, is human freedom. Human freedom is not to live as a slave to whatever kind of instincts and impulses and whims and that you have, to be in charge of your life, to live consciously, to make decisions, to eat, to do the right things according to your principles and values, what you know to be correct, not just whatever you feel like doing at the moment. That's human freedom. And that is what we got at the end of the process. Not at the moment we got out of Egypt, but when we got to Mount Sinai and we became the people of the book and we received the Torah. We didn't just get it, we opted in, and we say we are going to be a people of values and principles and morals, that we're going to discuss it, and we're going to figure out what's the right thing to do, and we're going to do it even though it may be difficult or uncomfortable or hard or maybe opposite of my first instinct and impulse. But when I know that that's the right thing to do, then I'll do it anyway. Or if it's not the right thing to do, I won't do it. And that is human freedom. And that's what it means to be a Jewish person, frankly. When we go to Mount Sinai and we get the Torah, that's when we find out what it means to be Jewish. That's why God took us out of Egypt. Freedom is not like an end in and of itself. Freedom is as a means to live a life in which we can achieve all of our real goals. So just getting out of Egypt is good, but it's not, what is it good for? And it's only when the Jewish people get to Shavuos and we get the Torah and we now have values and principles and we become a nation with a mission and we can use our freedom positively for something. Now that's human freedom, the freedom to be in charge and in control of our lives. That's human freedom. So that's what the Torah is telling you when it says you're gonna start with barley and then count and work your way up. And 49 days later, now you're gonna act like a mensch, and you're gonna display and live a life with freedom, the freedom of a person, and that's the wheat offering, symbolized by the wheat offering at the end on Shavuos. Okay, it's a beautiful idea, and it's such a basic fundamental to understanding what it means to be Jewish. We all eat matzah and we celebrate it, and 3,333 years later we're still eating matzah and celebrating. But we have to remember that there's also cheesecake, because and life is not just matzah. Matzah is good, but it's got to be followed up with cheesecake. That cheesecake, as you know, is the preferred traditional Shavuos holiday food. Yes. And so you have to have matzah for Pesach and cheesecake for Shavuos. Delicious, mom's delicious cheesecake. You have to have that for Shavuos. Now, the truth is that we don't just use the month of ER as a vav to link the matzah and the cheesecake, because this year we had matzah cheesecake. We actually had a Pesach cheesecake, just to really put it together. That was part of our Passover treats this year, to really put it all into one package. Matzah cheesecake, but the of course, the culinary just accompanies the philosophy and informs what we eat. We have to eat our philosophy as well, and avoid eating the things we don't eat. Anyway, that's Rav Elia Lapian, a beautiful thought, and it really does. Today is Rosh Chodesh, as we said, and we're linking these two things, and we have to meditate on. That's your homework for tonight. Between now and tomorrow, I want you to think about that a little bit, and the connection between Passover and Shavuos. It's like Chol HaMoed, and it's like these are intermediary days. Now, because of their intermediary status, they're like quasi special. They're special days. The Chol HaMoed is a quasi holy day. It's a special day. And this is a special time. And the time should be, God willing, put to good use. And whenever you're going to do, do something meaningful, valuable, worthwhile, you need like a little bit of you need a roadmap or you need a roadmap. Okay. So here's the roadmap. So we meant to share this with you last week. This cute little flip book that I like from Rabbi Simon Jacobson, very popular, very famous, very, very nice little book, has on it this diagram here, like Google Maps. This is the Kabbalistic Google map of the 7 weeks that we're going here. You see, they got 7 circles with all the little lines. This is a superhighway. This is just like a detour. This is a wrong turn. Okay, this is your map here. Oh, look, there's another one in the studio. Everybody grab your Simon Jacobson Counting of the Omer booklet. These things are awesome. What am I talking about? What is the map? See here. So the truth is, if I can show that to you, you may be even able to read the words of the 7. I'm not sure if you can read the little words in the circles. They are transliterated words of Hebrew: Chesed, Gevura, Tiferes, and others. They are what are Kabbalistically known as the Spheros. As the word sphera is interesting because it means to count, and it also can mean, it also has to do with a particular manifestation of godliness. Okay, a manifestation of godliness, and what that means is that there are sort of 7 really key divine qualities. Things that God does that are godly, that are so great that we should know about them, think about them, and emulate them. These are godly. They're godly traits, and there are 7 of them in particular that we really try to focus in on, understand deeply, and internalize. And these 7 traits, divine qualities, actually are associated with these 7 weeks. So we know 49 days here. These 49 days are 7 times 7 for the math talented amongst us. 7 weeks of 7 days each is 49. The 7 weeks are associated with these 7 divine traits. And the map, the roadmap to follow is, in a sense, one could say, is like the diagram is like we're gonna try to get one, and then the next, and then the next, and we're trying to move forward along a 7-week journey to get from here to there, and to try to lock in on these particular things. Certainly, if someone had a particular challenging issue that they wanted to try to utilize this spiritual energy in the calendar to address, that you could do that. But these are something that are values, traits, character traits, attributes of godliness that we want to try to adopt, that are very big for us as Jews. The Jewish people are very big in our history, and these are some highlights. So these are things to work on, and as I said, they're associated with the 7 weeks of the year. It's a little bit mystical, but very beautiful. So, for example, let's talk about trait number 1, week number 1, chesed. And chesed is a trait, as a word, is a beautiful Hebrew word, which is often translated as loving kindness. It really means to be loving, means to be focused on the other person. The opposite of to be self-centered, to be focused on others. And to be kind, which means to do for others, to give to others. That's an outward focus. That's an extremely critically important Jewish trait. And it was really role modeled for us better than anyone else by our forefather Abraham. Abraham was a pillar of chesed. Okay, he really showed us what chesed looks like. And many of the stories of the Torah of Abraham's life are all about incredibly kind, loving things that he was doing for others. That's Abraham's chesed. And where did Abraham learn that from? He learned it from his sense of God. He was a pillar of chesed because that was his way of being godly, of acting in a godlike way. And what he really focused on and achieved was to raise to the highest human degree possible that godly trait of chesed. God is the ultimate benefactor. We're the beneficiaries. He's the beneficent one. He's the one who's giving to the world. He gives us life. He created the universe. He continues to sustain us with wonderful things. And when we give, we should do so. When we do so, we are in fact emulating this beautiful divine trait. We're giving, just like God gives, we give. That's trait number one. And it's associated with week number one. Now, what's trait number two? Trait number two is gevura. And gevura means strength. Strength as in discipline and self-control. Gevura is a trait which was really so beautifully demonstrated by our forefather Isaac. Isaac he demonstrated such incredible discipline, self-control, that he was able to put himself on the altar as a 37-year-old young adult to be brought as a sacrifice when that was what God had asked of them. And that's, an incredible thing to be able to rally 100% of his being and to be able to, to rally it and control it when to do the right thing with it. That's the ultimate in gevura. And that was the strength. It was a divine trait that was demonstrated to us in human terms by Isaac. This week, so that's week 2. This week today was day number 15. 15 in our count. We're up to 15. So 15, as you know, all of you math majors, is just past 7 and 14. It's after week 2 is over, and we're into week 3. So this is the first day of the 3rd week. So we're ready for trait 3. So we didn't talk about traits 1 and 2 too much during this week, but this we could talk a lot more about it. I'll just introduce it a little bit today, and then maybe we'll talk about it later in the week. Trait number 3 in the chart is Tiferes. Now, if I show you, if you look at the chart, it's a little bit, this triangle is the top triangle is what we're looking for. And you've got trait number 1 is chesed. Trait across from that is gevura. And down here in the middle, at kind of like a middle intersection of both of these, is trait number 3, Tiferes, which means splendor, glory. And it is also associated with Torah and truth. And it was a divine trait that was really raised to the ultimate nth degree by our forefather Jacob. So you got Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are the human role models, if you will, embodiments of the greatest of these first 3 traits. And the concept between them is thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. Because chesed, we said, as we pointed out, is like a focus on the other. Gevura, opposite that, is a focus on self-control. And Tiferes, which is the 3rd one in the middle, which is a splendor, a beautiful resolution of the two, in which you bring both of those two things together. Now, sometimes you don't know when you should sort of lean into the chesed and when should you lean into the gevura. And the perfect admixture of those two things is just splendorous. And what is that? It's Torah. And as we study the Torah, we get to understand how those two things combine most beautifully. And that was really Jacob. Jacob was the ultimate student of the Torah. The Torah says in his youth that he would dwell inside in the tents of study and the tents of prayer. And he was the incredible student of Torah. And he is the resolution of both the strength of his father and the chesed of his grandfather, and he brought them together so perfectly and so beautifully. That's the resolution of those two things. That's Jacob's lesson for us. So that's this week. Now, this great book, and then I'm going to leave you with this today. This great book actually gives you some wonderful things to think about on a sort of a daily basis, which is really nice. And today being week 3, so week 3, I'll just read you the little introduction to it. And how does our fabulous author, Rabbi Jacobson, describe this trait that we're going to be focusing on and thinking about in our journey to Shavuos this week? So he calls that Tiferes, which is compassion, harmony, and truth. Harmony, beautiful, right? The melody together and the harmony. Compassion, harmony, and truth, those are his English names. And it has to do with beauty, blending the differing colors of love and discipline. Harmony makes it beautiful. Compassion blends and harmonizes the free outpouring love of chesed and the discipline of gevura. This week, Tiferet, the trait of Tiferes, possesses this power by introducing a third dimension, the dimension of truth, which is neither love nor discipline, and therefore can integrate the two. Very beautiful. Truth is accessed through selflessness, rising above our ego and our predispositions, enabling us to realize a higher truth. Truth gives us a clear and objective picture of ours and others' needs. The imbalance of love and discipline, if we're out of balance with love and discipline, is the result of subjective and limited perspective. But introducing truth by suspending our personal prejudices allows us to express our feelings in the healthiest manner. Beautiful, beautiful ideas. You understand the harmony and the resolution of the love and the loving kindness of week 1 and the discipline and the self-control of week 2, putting that all together in the beautiful harmony, which will unpack all kinds of things for us. That's the topic of the week. Hope it gave you something to think about, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Have a healthy day and a holy day, and we will see you, God willing, live at 5 tomorrow for continuing on the journey. Week 3, soon cheesecake. See you tomorrow.